In question 4, it says write a corresponding integer multiplication problem for each picture. And then it also tells you that the circled groups are being removed from the circle. Part of this is the key word removed. Remembering to our earlier problem, we know that the first term is what determines whether we are removing or adding something. So that means that our first term must be a negative. Since we're multiplying, we'll finish setting up the basis of what we know so far. When we look at the first problem, for A, we can see that there are two distinct different groups. Remembering back to the earlier problem, the first term is also the term that determines how many groups are being removed or added. So that means that our first term is -2 because we are removing 2 groups. Remembering back also to that first problem we did, we learned that the second integer, which will go right here, determines how big each of those groups are. So we can see that each of these groups has 1, 2, 3 negative charges in it. So we can determine that -3 is going to be how big our groups are. Now, looking at our problem, we can see -2 times -3 equals whatever our answer will be. Now we can either go back to our problem from before and realize that they're going to have a similar answer, or we can also look after we've removed the 2 groups, how many charges are we going to have left and of what kind. In this case, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positive charges after we removed the 2 groups of -3, which is the same answer we got in the previous problem, so we know we're correct. For another example, we also have different amounts of groups with different charges. So first, let's determine, are we going to be removing something or adding something? Well, in the beginning of the problem, it says circled groups are being removed, so we know that the first term must be a negative number. Then we can look at how many groups are we actually removing. In this example, we're removing 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So we know that 4 has to go in this spot right here, meaning that -4 will be our first term. Then we have to determine how big are the groups that we're taking out. Well, if you look at each of the 4 groups, you can see that there's 2 in each of them. And since the positive sign is what's in the group, you know that it's a +2. So in your head, I'm sure you could figure out the answer. But looking at this, we determine the answer by seeing what's left. After we take away 4 groups of 2, how many do we have left? If you count the negatives, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which tells us that we will have -8 left after removing 4 groups of 2.